Game of Thrones discourse gets pretty crazy. You have an unfinished book series, a TV show whose ending everyone hated, and another running TV show that everyone can't really agree on the quality of. But there's a question that dominates this discourse, whether book or show. Is this all cynical, or is it hopeful? Is the theme of all these stories that bad things happen to good people, or is it that we should persist through this darkness no matter how bleak things may be? I'm happy to say that at last, the general public gets to watch why it's definitely the latter, and that they get to see it through everyone's new top guy, Ser Duncan the Tall. My name is Jack, and welcome to A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms has proven to be a rousing success. On its far smaller budget, the show has achieved phenomenal viewership, coupled with immense critical acclaim. But perhaps most significant, in both my experience and in what I've observed in others, is the degree to which the show has resonated in an almost spiritual manner with its viewers. A palpable sense of enthusiasm and vigor and excitement for this show, and for its main character, Dunk, has once more enthralled many viewers of Game of Thrones back into its universe. Why? Well, it's simple. People love to root for a true knight. But this true knight is not some pawn in grand political machinations. He is not pledged to a great and noble house. He's not even present at many of the grand cities that we've been privy to in this universe. He is but a humble hedge knight, living up to his title. Dunk has no lands, his clothes are threadbare, and his sword belt is literally made out of rope. In titular fashion, he literally makes his bed beneath the leaves of trees and hedges. This created a bit of a problem. Worries started to persist amongst people who had read these books as to how general audiences were going to take it. I and others who adore these stories found ourselves tinged with concern. Would general audiences be so taken with the simplicity of Dunk's tale? Could they stand to not have the grand and mythic plots and characters and set pieces that decorate the two pre-existing Game of Thrones series? I'm immensely pleased to say that if anything, the reception has gone above and beyond. The great advantage of slimming the elements of this story down is that major thematic points are no longer obscured by the cavalcade of other information. Instead, George is free to distill fewer but more distinct themes and characters. A number of viewers have experienced a degree of surprise at the difference of attachment they feel to these characters versus those in the concurrently running House of the Dragon. For example, dragon twins Baela and Rhaena have had more time on screen than Prince Maekar, and yet the endearment and sense of personhood for the latter totally eclipses the former. This too is a great source of that renewed vigor. The fact that Duncan Egg has filled the void that House of the Dragon Season 2 left. And it does this in no better way than through its main character, Dunk. In the books upon which A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms is based, the reader will never find themselves outside the mind of Ser Duncan. This is of great contrast to other A Song of Ice and Fire works, which function in great part due to the unfolding stories of multiple points of view. In this case, we get to fully immerse ourselves in Dunk's story alone. While the plots of House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones involve highborn nobles competing for massive changes in political power and fighting on these continent-spanning wars, Duncan Egg is about a simple desire, the want to be a knight. Dunk's life is shaped by knighthood. As an impoverished boy from the poorest part of King's Landing, the great force which lifted him out of his harsh life was knighthood, personified through his mentor, Sir Arlen of Pennytree. While being a hedge knight probably doesn't sound very ideal to us, to Dunk it's the pinnacle of life. It not only gave him a better life, but an ideal to aspire to. A knight is the avatar of the honor culture which serves as the foundational element of the society that Dunk exists in. It's emblematic of all that is good. But if one is to become a knight, then you have to ask, what is a knight? The master of the games at Ashford puts it quite simply.
Any knight can make a knight, it's true.
This is a phrase oft repeated, and it's true. Within Westerosi society, the means by which you become a knight are a sort of like apostolic succession. You must be knighted by another knight. Even lords are unable to knight you if they themselves are not already knighted, with the exception of the king. In this ceremony, you are charged with particular values to which you must hold. As of now, we know that they include, in the name of the Father, I charge you to be just. In the name of the warrior, I charge you to be brave. In the name of the mother, I charge you to protect the weak and the innocent. In the name of the maid, I charge you to protect all women. In all likelihood, there are further charges associated with the remaining members of the Seven, but for now, these are what we know. These particular rules, along with holding to the virtues of chivalry, are how a knight is to act. This is precisely how Dunk expects the other knights and lords he encounters to be, and yet, reality is far more complicated. The first crack in Dunk's understanding of knighthood is when he has to go find someone to vouch for him. When he tells the game master of his own rank, the man is sympathetic, but there has to be some level of verification. No one was present for Dunk's knighting, and the game master hasn't heard of Ser Arlen. Dunk must thus find someone at Ashford Tourney who does. A task which he expects to be quite simple. After all, Ser Arlen fought for and alongside these lords and knights. He went to war with them. He bled with them. Surely someone's going to remember. And yet he comes up short. Dunk talks to a number of lords, but they've no recollection of his mentor. He believes his best bet will be with Lord Manfred Dondarian, for whom Ser Arlen was greatly injured when joining him in fighting against the Dornish. But he not only has no recollection of Ser Arlen, but is entirely dismissive and uninterested in his service. Worse, Lord Manfred is, by the moral laws that Dunk seeks to uphold, brazenly indulging in sinful vices, hardly cutting the figure of the ideal noble that Dunk had in mind. It's not just Lord Manfred either. Ashford Tourney seems to be full of knights who are not upholding their vows, when the whole point of a tourney is to be a gathering of places who are honorable and chivalrous. Lords don't care for the service of their knights. Knights degrade and abuse their squires. Princes of the realm dishonorably humiliate their foes. Dunk pilgrimed to a place meant to be an Eden, but he found a Babylon. There are glimmers of hope for Dunk, such as his conversation with Sir Donal of the Kingsguard. The Kingsguard are the highest ranking knights in the realm. To be a member is to be a knight amongst knights, and Sir Donal tells Dunk that his family come from simple crab fishermen. This is elating news. I mean, if a man who's the son of a crabber can rise to be the highest ranked knight in the land, there has to be hope for Dunk in the future. But alas, as Egg points out,
Sir Donal of Duskendale.
Yep.
His father owns half the crabbing fleets in Westeros.
What?
he's not some underdog who rose through the ranks. He's the rich son of an even richer merchant, who likely got his position through political, not meritocratic methods. There's more than one example of this. House of the Dragon illustrated a similar dilemma when Rhaenyra chose her own personal guard. Hand of the King Otto Hightower makes many suggestions towards candidates that might yield positive alliances and political capital, much to Rhaenyra's disagreement. Her perspective, and one I believe many of us share, is that the role ought to go to the most capable warrior, as the office originally intended. Instead, in coordination with this running theme, we've seen a noble institution corrupted by worldly machinations. What Dunk believes in, what he's disappointed to not find at a place that it should be rife, is true knighthood. Where is the chivalry, the honor, the grace? Amongst these people, Dunk seems to be the only knight around, and this is soon put to the test. Dunk does something absolutely insane and attacks a member of the royal family, Prince Aerion Targaryen. But he does so in a rage inflicted upon him by Aerion's unjust torture of an innocent woman. Without even thinking, Dunk's instincts drive him to make the honorable choice, even if it means doing something that is legally and socially completely out of the question in Westerosi society. I've deliberately failed to mention a pretty significant aspect of this story, and it's that Dunk probably isn't actually a knight. Dunk states to the game master that Ser Arlen knighted him before he died, but in flashbacks we see that such a thing is unlikely to have happened. Ser Arlen doesn't respond when Dunk asks if he's to be knighted, or if he intended that Dunk become a knight one day, something we're reminded of when we see a flashback where, after he thinks Ser Arlen to be dead, Dunk confesses that he still hadn't been knighted. It's why he doesn't know the vows to give, why he hesitates to knight Raymond. He knows he wouldn't be truly making a knight of him because he isn't one himself. While Raymond looks up to Lionel as he's knighted, there's a parallel. Dunk does the same, only to be met with the face of Ser Arlen, shrugging and making a face as if to say, "Sorry, kid, it's not gonna happen." In the book, Dunk thinks to himself that he knew what it was like to want something so badly that you would tell a monstrous lie just to get near it. While it's technically ambiguous, the story all but confirms that Dunk was never actually knighted. According to the rules of Westeros, this makes him not just not a knight, but a dishonorable person. While an exaggeration, the game master describes what punishment would be visited on someone who lies about their knightly vows, and it's rather gruesome.
I'm not.
We hang you, naked, by your hands and your feet. Lower you down,
Politics!
first onto a sharpened point, and
Friend.
you dry. Call it the Ashford chair.
By all Westerosi societal standards, Dunk is wrong for lying about being a knight. But by the actual standards of being a knight, all these other so-called true knights are the ones who are in the wrong. Dunk alone seems to be the one that follows the rules while they abandon them for selfish reasons. Thus we come to one of the major thematic questions of the Hedge Knight. What makes a true knight? You might be quick to dismiss the office on a societal level because no one but Dunk seems to follow it, but I think that too is fallacious. Without honorable people to first establish this office and to serve as people to emulate for those in the future, Dunk and others would have nothing to aspire to in the first place. You could do away with the title, but it's practically inevitable that the traits and attributions would just come back along someday in a different form, just the same as when knighthood was created in the first place. But it's also true that this title is of not much intrinsic use, especially at this time in Westerosi society. There's by no means a portrayal of no hope. Dunk is, after all, joined by 5 others for his trial of 7. Lionel Baratheon, Humphreys Beesbury and Harding, Robin Riesling, and Raymond Fossaway are all willing to do the right thing. And yet, he's a man short. As it turns out, Stefan Fossaway, Raymond's cousin, who initially pledged his sword to Dunk after waxing moral about his actions, has turned his cloak to Aeryn's side after being promised lands. He sells out his knighthood for material gain and leaves Dunk in the dust and all but declared guilty for the fact that he no longer has 7 men to fight for him. It's important to note that Aeryn, who falsely accused Dunk, had no trouble finding fighters for his side. It doesn't matter that he engaged in immoral brutality. His position as a prince of the realm means he can call almost any man to his side. And that's part of what makes this struggle so heartbreaking for Dunk. He's absolutely doing the right thing, and yet he's being punished for it. Not only that, but even amongst the people he's fighting to protect, nor do the people who are meant to uphold the same oaths he followed through on, he cannot find someone to join him. He states this despair plainly. Has honor deserted the noble houses of Westeros? Are there no true knights among you?
I will take the Duncan side.
I don't know that in recent memory I can conjure up a television or movie moment that felt as triumphant as this did. At Dunk's final plea rides in Baelor Targaryen, the hand of the king and the heir to the Iron Throne, here to take Ser Duncan's side against his own family. Why? Because Dunk protected the innocent, as all true knights must. Second to Dunk's own character arc, it's Baelor's character that is the parallel which carries the most significance in the Hedge Knight. Baelor stands out from the others not just because he's the most important man in the realm, second only to the king, but because in spite of that fact, he's of peculiar humility and kindness. Baelor's relation to the common man is immediately conveyed through his appearance. He's a Targaryen in name, but certainly not in form. While this does indeed cause some in-universe tension, see the Blackfire Rebellions, it's also a wonderful thematic identifier. Targaryens, particularly in the books with their violet eyes, are these otherworldly figures, accompanied with their brilliantly white hair and singular ability to control dragons. Baelor, on the other hand, looks entirely unassuming. In the books, Dunk doesn't even recognize him as a member of the royal family, and in many ways he isn't. Amongst so many knights and lords, big and small, who don't remember a man that bled and fought alongside them, it's the crown prince of Westeros that remembers Sir Arlen. And it's merely from a joust at that. The borderline absurdity is even remarked upon by his brother Mycah.
How can you possibly remember some
Freaking
hedge knight who chanced to unhorse Daemon Lannister 16 years ago?
I make it a practice to learn all I can of my foes.
And why would you deign to joust with a hedge knight?
It's Baelor who vouches for Dunk in the tourney, and now it's Baelor who stands beside Dunk in the trial. A man at the bottom of society and a man at the very top, who despite against their self-interest, chose to do the right thing. But Baelor dies. And it's not just that, he's killed by his own brother. The conclusion of this story, for many in the Seven Kingdoms, is that the perfect heir died to protect a lowly hedge knight. It's certainly his son Valar's perspective, and it's Mykar's too. The both of them cannot fathom what cruel twist of fate occurred this day that things turned out the way that they did. If the point of this story is that it's important to make the right choice even when it's the difficult thing to do, what are we supposed to think when the character that does that suffers for it? And not just Baelor, but indeed the entire realm. Where does that leave us? The thing is that Baelor's death probably reminds you of someone, and that someone is Ned Stark. Like Baelor, Ned made the honorable, if unpragmatic choice when he tells Cersei he knows of her infidelity and his own plan to reveal it, hoping that he may protect her innocent children from the consequences. He also tells her to make the honorable choice to like this video and subscribe to Schlowitz, but that's besides the point. This earns him first treachery on the part of his accomplices, and then death at the hands of one of the children he was attempting to protect. By all means, Ned does the right thing, but he too dies for it. And yet so much hope persists from this sacrifice. The Lannisters win on this front in that they, in the short term, got rid of their most important enemy, but where does that actually leave them in the long run? Westeros is thrown into a continental war, with thousands dying on both sides. Commoner and noble alike die, and the fruits of the cynical acts committed against Ned in the north are revealed when those who utilize them perish. When Ned Stark dies, the entirety of the North and the Riverlands rally around his memory. His rulership of the North and the example that he set endeared him to his people and fostered their respect. Northmen and Riverlanders are eager to march upon the Lannisters for their great betrayal because of the great man that Ned was. It goes beyond that. Their willingness to fight for his children, for, as one soldier reminisces, for Ned's girl, shows that even in the short term, the Machiavellian nature of some political players may succeed, but in the long run, it's the legacy that Ned leaves behind that animates masses of people to do the right thing. Compare this to the death of Tywin. Does a great uprising of people emboldened by his legacy come about? No, quite the opposite. Tywin obsesses over legacy, but he can't leave one because he ruled with unempathetic pragmatism, a willingness to break solemn custom and to set honor aside to achieve his goals. When he dies, people don't seek to carry on his torch. They immediately devolve into infighting over the power vacuum that he leaves behind. Everyone who was on Tywin's side is not carrying on his legacy. They're all trying to get their own piece of the pie. Even Tywin's own children are set against each other. It's a microcosm of his effect on the realm. Jaime, Cersei, and Tyrion have their respective relationships with each other ruined, in large part because they're trying to act like Tywin taught them to. Their emulation of his politically effective but spiritually destructive modus operandi results in fractured power and ruined spirits. Ned made the right decision, and he suffered for it. But that decision, it echoes, it survives, and ultimately wins. Baelor's sacrifice means that a true knight survives, and that true knight goes on to have a significant impact on not just the people he encounters, but the entirety of the Seven Kingdoms and beyond.
Ser Duncan the Tall. 4 pages for Ser Duncan. He must have been quite a man.
So they say.
Dunk may seem like a lowly hedge knight, but we know that one day he won't be. Dunk will go on to be a historic figure, filling pages of the White Book, which is made specifically to detail the escapades of members of the Kingsguard. He will have a monumental effect alone, but especially on Egg. It is only through Egg's time with Ser Duncan that Egg learns the values that he eventually brings to his kingship, a fondness for the common folk that no king before or after him has held. The ripples of this are prolonged further unto the people that exist only because of Dunk's survival, namely those of Egg's line like Rhaegar, Daenerys, or Jon Snow. Baelor may have perished in his good deeds, but it was not a sacrifice without merit. Valar pointedly asks, why would the gods take him and leave you? And the remainder of Dunk and Egg, the results that we know come of it in A Song of Ice and Fire, are an answer to that question. Baelor is gone, but his legacy, his honor, his true knighthood persists. Even if Dunk is dishonest about his status as a knight, the Prince of the Realm recognizes the truth of his knightly purpose and stands beside him, willing to die for that noble cause. So we must all, I think, take heed that call. Get up, even when it's the hard choice to make, even when knighthood is long past buried in our cultural consciousness, to make the right choice, the knightly choice, in our own lives.